In the news this week, the controversial horse racing industry exposed as Melbourne Cup edges closer.
Demanding competition for work sky high with a snapshot revealing a lack of entry-level jobs.
Suspension of WA junior drag racing lifted after an inquiry into a young racer's death.
And over 130 years of history on the terrace, St Andrew's Church has a new home.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Danielle Staniscott.
As the horse racing industry cruelties have been exposed this week, activists are now urging the public to reconsider having a bet on the upcoming Melbourne Cup and Spring Carnival racing events. Reporter Taylor Hanna sat with Katrina Love, Vice President of the Animal Justice Party, to talk about animal welfare and the lack of regulations for the industry.
What are your thoughts on the current animal welfare issues, particularly around racehorses?
We've been discussing them for a long time. Both the Animal Justice Party and the Coalition for the Protection of Racehorses has been discussing both the issue of wastage and the figures that the racing industry is putting out as to how many horses are bred and how many end up in knackeries and slaughterhouses. So it comes as no surprise.
Is it getting worse?
Well, the racing industry has always proclaimed that everyone in the industry loves their horses. They live for their horses. They're treated like royalty. They always find homes for them. There's only a very few that don't end up being rehomed. And that those who do end up in slaughterhouses and knackeries are, humanely slaughtered. So I think this is just this expose and the amount of footage that the undercover investigators have got in that particular, in the Merrimist slaughterhouse, has proven that the figures are wrong.
What can be done to stop this sort of becoming an even bigger problem or to lessen the effects, I suppose?
Well, the government's subsidising the racing industry. So, they say they've got regulators in place and the racing industry is answerable to those regulators and they've got to comply with certain laws and regulations. But as was shown in this expose, the regulators don't even know. They've got horses listed as still active who were killed a week beforehand. So it really needs to be much more heavily regulated in the interim. The breeding needs to be severely limited and there need to be much bigger penalties for anyone caught, breaking the law.
Job seekers in WA are finding it hard to start working, with research revealing high competition for limited entry-level positions. Social services groups say those jobs aren't being created, leaving the future looking bleak for young Western Australians. Nelson Liu reports.
Jobs are in demand, but now more out of reach. Australia's challenging job market has become more difficult, becoming tougher for unskilled Australians.
That doesn't work.
An Anglicare jobs availability snapshot this week has revealed 7 job seekers are competing for every entry-level job in WA, while it's 5 people nationally.
There's a huge reduction in manual labour positions and basic positions that are out there.
There are concerns it's severely affecting young people who have limited education and training.
Got all of these people that are applying for jobs that they've got no chance of actually getting.
Social advocates claim long-term unemployed job seekers are trapped in poverty, with limited jobs and Newstart and youth allowance assistance payments not enough.
And they don't have the resources or the income to support them to get the job.
And they're calling for a rise in payments, better employment assistance and a reform of Employment Service Job Active to break the cycle.
We would really like to see the government invest in developing pathways to employment.
Social services groups say many job seekers are applying for work, but there are just not enough jobs. And now, without reforms to Newstart and Job Active, things won't change. Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
Children will be able to drag race in WA again after a suspension on juniors racing was lifted following the death of a young competitor. The 2017 death of 8-year-old racer Anita Board resulted in a suspension, but has now been removed with a minimum age raised from 8 to 10 years and increased safety measures. The state government says racing now has enhanced safety for youths competing.
Look, there's one thing that's very important about drag racing. There's been this one terrible incident of a young girl losing her life. We looked at that and then we looked at the facilities itself and we've enacted everything the coroner has asked and more to make sure these kids can go out there and operate those vehicles safely.
Police officers in Geraldton and the Mid-West Gascoyne region will be equipped with body-worn cameras in the hope of strengthening community safety and improving transparency and accountability with the public. The sudden rollout in this area, backed by the Police Commissioner, comes after a Geraldton woman was shot by police last month. Police Minister Michelle Roberts said the rollout shows how committed WA Police are to ensuring regional police are as well equipped as their metropolitan counterparts. Since the commencement of the body-worn camera rollout, more than 80,000 files have been recorded.
In the early hours of Saturday, 12th of October, a serious assault occurred in Northbridge, leaving a male victim with serious injuries. A 29-year-old man was spotted walking along James Street around 10 minutes past 2 a.m. before an unknown man started a fight, striking the victim from behind, knocking him to the footpath. The victim received a broken jaw and was conveyed to Royal Perth Hospital for treatment. Inquiries into the assault are continuing. Anyone with information or footage is urged to contact Crime Stoppers.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has secured a new Brexit deal with the European Union, less than 15 days before the Brexit deadline. The new deal, including UK's departure on the EU customs union, Northern Ireland to keep the EU single market rule, EU's law on value-add tax to only be applied on goods. The new deal has failed to secure enough support at the House of Commons, with MPs voting no to the new deal last night.
It cannot change my judgment that further delay is pointless, expensive and deeply corrosive of public trust.
US President Donald Trump has been criticised for withdrawing American troops from the Kurdish-occupied area in Syria. A 120-hour ceasefire agreement has been made with Turkey following a negotiation announced by US Vice President Mike Pence. Mr. Pence says the United States will work with Kurdish fighters to withdraw in 120 hours.
Our administration has already been in contact with Syrian Defense Forces, and we have already begun to facilitate their safe withdrawal from the nearly 20-mile wide safe zone area south of the Turkish border in Syria.
With over 130 years of history, formerly on St George's Terrace, the St Andrew's Church has a new home in East Perth. Continuing its pastoral outreach from their new modern facilities, St Andrew's hopes to attract members of all ages.
So you guys are the first church in East Perth?
As far as I understand it, we're the first church to be here in East Perth. We've probably got a better opportunity to reach community life here than we had on the terrace.
Alan McKenzie, the chair of the council, said they were very lucky to find their new place here and are happily sponsoring the East Perth Urban Village Festival as a way of saying hello.
And have you settled in all right here?
We have indeed, thank you, yes, and we're very pleased to say that there's a number of new people coming along to the services on a Sunday morning, and long may it continue.
130 odd years, that's
very long time.
Very long time, that's right. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website and Facebook page.
Until next Sunday after 8, thanks for watching. Good evening.
Good night.